right about one thing, Captain. We are no Jedi.
Smash.
Hey there, I'm Mr. Cack with Rage You Nerds, and I've been watching the first 3 episodes of the Ahsoka series on Disney+. And I've got some thoughts. I hope you're ready to listen to those thoughts as we do what I like to call Rage Reviews, Ahsoka, episodes 1, 2, and 3. And I think stylistically for how I'd want to review it, I would rather group 1 and 2 together and just make it its own entity, and then go to 3. That just feels better. But before we get into all of that, let's do a quick little background on the Ahsoka series because, let's be real, they don't really explain a lot to us. Alright, so here is the background to set up the Ahsoka series, one of the many wonderful Star Wars properties. Ahsoka Tano was a Jedi Padawan trained by Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars. She was a skilled warrior and a valuable member of the Jedi Order, however she was framed for a bombing of the Jedi Temple and was forced to flee. She later cleared her name, but she left the Jedi Order disillusioned with their ways. The Ahsoka series takes place after the events of the Return of the Jedi by several years. The Empire has fallen, but the galaxy is still in chaos. Ahsoka is searching for her former friend and ally, Ezra Bridger, who disappeared during the Battle of Lothal. She is on a quest to redeem herself and find her place in the galaxy. The Ahsoka series connects to other Star Wars properties in a number of ways. It is set in the same timeline as the animated series Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and it features many characters from those series, including Ahsoka herself, Sabine Wren, and Hera Syndulla. The series also references events from the film, such as the Battle of Yavin and the Battle of Endor. The Ahsoka series is expected to explore Ahsoka's past, her relationships with Anakin Skywalker, who Hayden Christensen is confirmed as being on the cast list for this, and her search for Ezra Bridger. It is also expected to deal with the themes of redemption, hope, and the future of the Jedi Order. So from there, we kind of have that Ahsoka is kind of this bridging point, Ezra Bridger, bridging point of where Dave Filoni's Star Wars verse is kind of starting to meet together at a centralized bottleneck point. So let's talk about the 2 episode clusters. Let's talk about episode 1, episode 2, and then episode 3. My personal thought is that episode 1 and episode 2, if I had to give just a direct line of sight rating right off the bat, it would be this. Meh. Because the pacing was not, it was boring. If I could just cut away any veneer of wanting to sugarcoat this, I personally found myself grinding through episodes 1 and 2. The good of episode 1 and 2 is that the set pieces, the visuals, the planets, the use of, I liked Sabine's little speed racer thing, her little speed bike. All of that stuff looked really good. I didn't mind the actors. I thought the actors cast for Sabine, for Ahsoka, seeing Clancy Brown was also a nice little, hey, that guy's still in everything, and that's awesome. Which he was reprising his voice role from Star Wars Rebels anyways. I think there were a lot of very good pieces. I just think the execution of the first 2 episodes themselves, just the slow, methodical pacing at times, just there just was something missing. There was just something that didn't make it feel, for an entry point to kind of get you hyped. And I know that doesn't have to be the formula for every show, but I don't know. I was kind of expecting something to really get the hook set in, especially that first half, episode 1, really, setting the hooks in me. And I think what they were hoping for was the introduction of these 2 dark side wielders. I don't know if we can call them Sith. I don't know if it's even fair to call them Sith. But you have Ray Stevenson, who amazing. Again, the actors and actresses in all of this were amazing. But you got Ray Stevenson's character, Baylan Skoll. You have his apprentice Shin, or that's what we assume the pairing is there. So I guess that was supposed to be the big hook. Ooh, more baddies with red lightsabers. Or maybe the hook was just the general, we have a pathway to get Thrawn. I don't know. It just felt like a very subdued starting point for something that I wish they would have given a little bit more hype and introduction. A little bit more pomp and circumstance, I guess, is probably my biggest issue with things. Again, I think the actors, actresses were all super talented. I think a lot of the set design and the world appearances looked really good. Really loved how Lothal looked in this live action format. So, I mean, I didn't have a lot of big technical issues. I didn't think it looked hokey. I didn't think a lot of the graphics were bad. It's just the way the story was composed, I think, was just a little bit soft. I think they could have went a little bit harder, especially episode 1, and they played it really, really slow. I don't think that helped me get interested in wanting to see episode 2. I think that made me think, oh god, I've got another episode to go through tonight. I better hurry up and do that. Episode 2 didn't do much better in picking up the pace. I think the pacing was still about the same between the 2 episodes, which just is such a weird starting point for a series that you're hoping to get people hyped on, because this series is going to, for Dave Filoni, lead to an eventual movie culmination of all his different Filoni-verse parts merging together. And this was just, I don't know, just wasn't a really good, fun start, I don't think. For as much as you may feel strongly or unstrongly about Obi-Wan had a much better starting point, a little bit more of a hook to it than what this did. Andor had a better starting point. Mandalorian had a better starting point, although Mandalorian in retrospect kind of was a little bit slow, but Mandalorian had the allure of everything, and you would think that Ahsoka would too, but Ahsoka is playing from behind. Ahsoka is now hitting that point where the MCU is, where there's kind of this Disney-verse of properties hitting a little bit of a mental fatigue with some people just because of how much content's being churned out. I think another thing, if I had to give a good-bad ratio on episodes 1 and 2, it'd be this. There was no setup for the uninitiated into who, what, or why I should care about most of these people. Characters were introduced like we would have known them forever and should have been standing up and applauding. So episodes 1 and episodes 2 do a real good job of congratulating you for being someone that may have watched every bit of Star Wars content. If you are someone that has consumed every Dave Filoni animated property and now have started consuming all of his Disney Plus properties and have also watched the prequel and original trilogy, then you are getting like the biggest thumbs up. You did it. Congratulations, Dave Filoni likes you. If you are someone that's a more casual Star Wars fans, maybe you've only watched the movies, maybe you only have watched Mandalorian, or one of the other Disney Plus series. Maybe you're just someone that watched Rogue One and you're kind of piecing it together from there. You don't know who these characters are and you really don't care. I mean, you happen to know who Ahsoka is because you happen to see her in Mandalorian 2 in season 2 if you watch that season, if you've watched The Mandalorian. If you haven't come into this, if you're coming into this series completely brand new, this series did you no service in trying to explain who any of these characters are and how they fit into the grand scheme of the world. And that is kind of frustrating. For as much as Star Wars is kind of a huge brand name that even people that haven't seen Star Wars, even at this day and age in 2023, still are aware of aspects of the original trilogy. And maybe they've never seen it before. Maybe they didn't even like it. Maybe they're weirdos that were born in the late 90s who happen to love the prequel trilogy the most as their preferred trilogy. Either case, if you came in casually to this series, you were not rewarded or helped guided. And I feel like that is a detriment to the episode itself. I feel like they could have done a better job of at least just setting up. Maybe instead of some of the weird pacing we got, cut out a couple minutes of that. And in the beginning of the episode, instead of going straight into the Darksider conflict on the ship and obtaining Morgan Elsbeth back, you go to and just show a brief clip of, I don't know, maybe a live action interpretation, a live action version, just a small segment of Ezra Bridger, Thrawn, and the sacrifice Ezra made, or leading up to the sacrifice of Ezra making, because the little video, the little hollow video that we get of him with Sabine just doesn't do justice. And honestly, who the hell knew that was Ezra? Like, I know a lot of diehards do, but again, for the casual experience or for those that haven't been fully committed to seeing every second of Star Wars content, it just is one of those things where it's like, oh, little tiny man, okay. She liked him. All right. Well, I guess that's good. They did do a disservice to themselves, not helping create an understanding of why all of this matters, why Ahsoka matters, why Sabine being a Jedi or pursuing her Jedi goals is a thing. And that's another thing, right? I have friends that are very upset that we kind of just off-camera'd Sabine Wren going from being a Mandalorian to just all of a sudden now she's been the apprentice of Ahsoka since Ezra disappeared. And now what they're going for, I believe, is that the heartbreak that both Ahsoka, more so Sabine Wren, felt from Ezra's sacrifice, Sabine is trying to fill that void of the missing Ezra by following in his footsteps, to just kind of feel closer to him by becoming what he was trying to become, a Jedi. And I think that that is fine. I just think you have to set something up more. You could have shown us a younger Sabine and Ahsoka dealing with the aftermath of losing Ezra, and that is how your cold open starts. We see Ahsoka, we see a distraught Sabine, make the vow or make the determination in her frustration and anxiety and kind of just being depleted after losing Ezra of, I want to become a Jedi. And Ahsoka questioning that, but ultimately because she sees something in Sabine, or maybe she just sees something in the lacking of Ezra, she agrees to that. I'm not a screenwriter, I'm not a director, I'm not a Star Wars aficionado. I just felt like that would have probably been a better starting point. But the goods are there, right? I do like our two baddies. I really love Baylan Skull. I know we're not getting a whole lot of him, but Ray Stevenson is just a badass right off the bat. And to kind of go into another good, I really thought it was interesting, their kind of march through the ship to find Morgan, how it seemed like their depiction of using their lightsabers, the kind of like their lightsaber combat and their use of force, it really felt like video game mechanics. And I don't know why, but I really liked that, especially the perspective of being behind Shin as she was deflecting. It just felt like you were part of a video, like you were playing a video game. And for some reason that hit really well. One thing I think is a little bit maybe kind of in the middle. I kind of liked it. I kind of dug it, but I have friends that just did not. They're loyalists, they're purists, they didn't like it at all. And that's the red font used in the opening crawl. I thought that was pretty cool. It kind of made it a little bit different. Ooh, we're getting into something, a little spicy here.
Two more down!
Episode 3, on the other hand, I think was a very noticeable step up in episode. I think episode 3, while would have not served as a better opening at all, I think episode 3 gives us a lot of what we've come to really enjoy about Star Wars properties in general. And that is very simply this: space dogfights. I mean, like that's the thing, right? You can nail a good space dogfight, you've probably made a pretty good episode or movie or cartoon of Star Wars. And this episode gave us one of those. This episode, I think, also draws on things that, if not for you as a casual fan or a fan of, the bigger properties of Star Wars, I think did something that would have made George Lucas a fan. And that's going back to kind of this more samurai feel when it comes to the Jedis. I think Jedis have kind of lost some of their luster, especially since it's became all about the Skywalker of it all. But Ahsoka, especially marching out onto the wing of her ship to kind of have her lightsaber battle in space was an interesting thing. But at the same time, like, even the music was like a subtle Asian infused kind of twang to it with string instruments. And it's like, you know what? This has a very samurai anime-y kind of feel to it. And I think, again, when Star Wars is incorporating those kind of inspiration pieces, that is when Star Wars is hitting at its top notch. But one of the things I probably love the most about all 3 episodes is Huyang. The droid voiced by David Tennant is easily one of my favorite characters of this show. And honestly, again, it goes back to when Star Wars is at its best, it's introducing certain elements that are just a tried and true formula. And that is, in this case, droids that people love. Rogue One, I love Rogue One. For a lot of reasons, I love Rogue One. Maybe a definitive end is probably the best reason I love Rogue One. But interesting, non-typical characters that we get, even the not Jedi that we get in Rogue One. All of these elements are great, and we're probably going to get a lot of not Jedis. I mean, that's a talking point. That is a literal talking point of episode 3, of how Sabine is the most atypical Jedi that could possibly Jedi out there right now. There's not a lot of Mandalorians that make the transition to being a Jedi, and she herself and Huyang has said, not a good candidate. Just not a good, probably the worst candidate. Maybe the worst candidate ever, which is subjective, because they did bring in Anakin Skywalker, who one may argue is probably the worst Jedi candidate ever. But Huyang just being kind of it's not even that he's sarcastic, right? Where some of my favorite droids in the past had an element of sarcasm to him. Huyang isn't really sarcastic. He's truthful, but it comes off as biting because he's a robot. So everything's just kind of bluntly laid out. And he may be sarcastic because that's just the David Tennant of it all. But the fact that he is so matter of fact is just funny. He's just real. Huyang is a real one. I think we can respect that.
I'm the worst candidate to be a Jedi out of every Jedi he's ever known.
Agreed.
In all, I think episode 3 did a lot of good things. I like the training. I like the training element of it, of getting really getting really personal between Sabine and Ahsoka, and kind of building up that training. Something that, it wouldn't have hurt to give us a little bit of a flashback to in the beginning to set the tone for things. We're getting it now, and we're getting this feel for it. And I really like it. I like both actresses in this situation. I think both of them have a look and feel to them that I think matches the context of the scene itself. I really like the dogfight. I really loved seeing, again, space, hyperdrive looks good, space looks good. I love the hyperdrive ring that we're getting, that Morgan's base is kind of building towards to bring about the coming of Thrawn. I love seeing the Purgle, the big space whales. Every time they pop up, shit goes down, so I can't wait to see what happens next. Maybe one of their big butts will go flying through that hyper ring. They seem like maybe they're, it'd be fun. It'd be a fun time. But I really did enjoy the look and feel. The New Republic is just kind of, it's bullshit. Like I can't find a reasonable defense for the New Republic at all. Again, as I said in the beginning, we know it's doomed to fail, but it's just what are we doing? But I think there's much more good to episode 3 than bad. Episode 3 is indication of where episode 4 will go with pacing, with story, with character, with development. Then I think episode 3 is a very promising note to have now, because I don't think episode 1 and episode 2 set me up for feeling great about the next 5 episodes. Episode 3 has set me up feeling pretty good about the next episode. I hope that they don't drag the Thrawn of this out too long. I would like to see that. We also have more screen time with a character that really hasn't been introduced, but that's Inquisitor Marrok, who is the helmeted dark side user that kind of had that little nice one-on-one with Ahsoka in episode 2, and now has joined Shin in the dogfight in episode 3. We don't really know a lot about him, but they have a helmet on, so I'm sure there's going to be some spicy grand reveal. And of course, if you haven't watched every nook and cranny of everything Dave Filoni has touched, there's probably a chance you'll be like, I don't know who that is. Though I will say there is a rumor out there that under that helmet poo could be a character from a video game franchise that would really explode the people making that character canon. So maybe I shouldn't crap on that too quick. Maybe, because I would pop for that. You'd get me there. But that's kind of been my overall thoughts of episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Ahsoka. I am genuinely curious about how you feel about the series thus far. Is it meeting your expectations? Is it meeting your goals? Did you even have any idea what you were stepping into? And what would you like to see by the end of this season? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe if you want to keep up with all of our nerdy content. We're going to be doing a few more episode reviews, and I'll try not to do them as clustered as this. Maybe a better script. This one was kind of off the cuff because I just watched episode 3 and was feeling the force. Unlike Sabine, who wasn't feeling the force. All right. I'm Mr. Cack. This has been Rage You Nerds. This has been our Rage review of Ahsoka episodes 1, 2, and 3.